Hello and welcome to another episode of Earth911's Sustainability in Your Ear. I'm Mitch Ratcliffe, and we're back to have another innovator interview, a conversation with a person making a difference in sustainability and how we build our relationship with our planet. You know, humans waste an immense amount of food because it has been difficult to move surplus produce, meat, and packaged foods to the places where it can be used before it spoils. The U.S. Department of Agriculture estimates that Americans waste about 30 to 40% of the food produced annually, some of it due to spoilage in the fields and during transportation, but mostly because we buy and don't use an average of 218.9 pounds of food per person in the United States. That's a lot more than 32 million tons, but that's the conservative estimate we came up with. Our guest today is Maen Mahfoud, who is the founder and CEO of Replate, which uses technology to connect sources of surplus food to nonprofits that can get it into the hands of people in need. He founded Replate in 2016, and the organization has grown to include a staff of more than 50 people who provide food in parts of California, the Pacific Northwest, in the Midwest, in the Northeast, and the Southeast. The company is growing, and you're going to be getting this service sooner than you think. Replate has recovered 2.7 million pounds of food and delivered about 2.3 million meals while saving 748 million gallons of water and reducing CO2 emissions. That's a lot of good news, and it may be a model for treating a lot of other surplus materials that we can think about. So let's dive into the solution to food waste and find out what else we can do with this idea. To learn more about Replate, check out www.re-plate.org, www.re-plate.org. Welcome to the show, Maen. How are you today?
Hi, Mitch. Thank you so much for having me. By the way, you can access our website by having the Replate without a dash as well. Just say.
Oh, good. Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
I make a big point of trying to spell these things correctly because so many.
No, it's perfect. It's good to have all variation out there.
Well, hey, thank you for joining us. And you've tackled one of the biggest problems in sustainability. What was your initial insight into the problem that you thought I could use an app and a network to solve this?
Yeah. So funny enough, I came up to this problem from a food insecurity standpoint rather than from a food waste standpoint. So I'm originally from Syria and immigrated to the U.S. About 11 years. Since we were kids, my brother and I, my mom used to cook so much food in the Middle East, back in the days, and we were kids, and my mom would never let us have lunch if we don't do our runs for our neighbors, my brother and I. So every day, my mom would make like tremendous amount of food, and she will tell us, okay, this neighbor doesn't have their partner in town, or this neighbor works in construction all day, so you got to go and make sure you give them the food before you're allowed to have your lunch. It's very hot in the Middle East, and in the middle of the day it gets so annoying. And you're hungry and all of that. So we used to hate it, my brother, and it was like, say, okay, can't believe she's making us do this, and we grew up this way. Every day we had to do these runs, and we're not talking about leftover food at this point or surplus food. We're talking about food before even we eat it ourselves. Mm-hmm. So I think coming to the US, I was really struck, given that I came to the Bay Area, seeing the levels of people, the amount of people, experiencing food insecurity. I remember at the time I was walking around where Twitter building is in San Francisco, and across the street, you have these people, unfortunately, looking into trash cans for sandwiches, or, and people in encampments, unfortunately experiencing homelessness. It was an inflection point for me. It was like, okay, so 1 second, this is the area where we're supposed to be creating solutions for the world, right? And solving the world's biggest problems. Why do we have people experiencing these challenges in areas like this? So yeah.
Oh, I mean, I have worked in that neighborhood on and off over the past 40 years, and you're absolutely right. Silicon Valley, despite the fact that it is leading the world in the direction that we want to go, has some of the worst situation in terms of homelessness and food insecurity. It's stark and surprising. When you look at the problem, though, did you think, okay, I have to put together a whole network of nonprofits, or did you just start with a few small projects and build out? How did you evolve the Replate concept?
Yeah, so really it started by me basically getting in my car and, seeing that in my cafeteria at that time, in school and at work and the internship, they had so much food. And I was like, okay, what are we doing with this? Why don't I just take this and literally give it to the person across the street, or like
So
drive myself and go
told you to do it.
yeah, exactly. So this is what I did. I got into my car and I took the leftover, meals that were there, and I took it to an encampment that was across the street. And then after that, I was like, okay, I started doing it regularly. I just thought it's the right thing to do. And these meals actually cost about $12 to $15 a meal. And,
Mhm.
there's so much resources that came into them, how much water we used to how much transportation to get it to the plate. And it's unfortunate to see it, from every standpoint, it doesn't make sense for you to actually throw it at the trash. So I started doing that on a daily basis until I realized there is definitely a gap. There is
Mhm.
clearly a gap between, there's so much supply of food, there's so much abundance. We throw away, like you mentioned, almost up to 40% of our food. And then you have the demand, which is around 1 in every 8 Americans do not know where their next meal is coming from. So what's happening here is that there's a clear supply and demand problem. And
Mhm.
if we can deliver cookies in 30 minutes, why can't we, create a solution for people who need a meal in 30 minutes or so? So I think living also in the Bay Area and coming in and sort of that stark, for me is like coming here is like, okay, I'm coming to some real prosperity right here, so much advancement, right? And it was, I think for me coming in, uh, it was a shock, I would say. It was, and that's sort of like, in a way, it was like it's sort of frustrating to see, but at the same time, like, okay, but also we have so much technology here. Why can't we learn so much from these startups and companies that are doing incredible work around the world to make solutions that are, you know, move the society in the right direction?
So how did you move from that sort of
Moving
bootstrapping
food.
approach, right, to
Yeah.
it's a logistics problem and I need to
Yeah.
build an app?
The funny part is, I started by doing pickups myself, like moving things around. And then after I realized, okay, I started getting calls from these caterers in the city, and, word of mouth, people know, okay, there's this guy who's moving food. So I started getting calls. And one time, I was like, okay, so this is not sustainable. I'm getting a lot of calls. Like, what do I do? So I put together like a website, like a Wix website. And then, I transitioned it into like a Squarespace that looks neater, and then just myself, working around. And then I started adding forms, like sort of people request their pickups with forms like type forms or others that is, sort of interactive and fun. And then so that people can start channeling their requests through that tool rather than calling and all of this. But at the same time, I was the person taking requests and the person also doing the pickups. So at some point, I was like, we need to hire, some other food rescuers, drivers, call them food rescuers. And I was like, okay, so I took a lift once and I talked to this guy. His name is Matt. And I was like, dude, this is, we have a company. It's called Replate. And it wasn't a company at that time, but we need drivers. We need people to help us with that. So he was like, okay, so this is, I can, I will get that many dollars per hour and
Right.
all of that. And then I went to the one of the bigger businesses I was working with in San Francisco. It's a catering company. And they were like, okay, so guys, do you like the service? They're like, yeah, we really need it for multiple reasons. I think the employees feeling better about the fact that, um, we're doing this. They're telling their partners about how amazing their work is and how their company is donating food. Plus, like, it's the right thing to do. Plus, it's like for climate standpoint. I didn't understand the intricacies of climate change and food waste at that time. So I actually had to dig deep and understand the problem there and sort of magnify it within our work. And now, so that we tackle the food waste piece with the food insecurity that comes sort of hand in hand in a food system
And the
situation.
environmental benefits are sort of a byproduct of that. You were solving a human problem, which is absolutely the right focus. Now, tell us how the replate process works. The business, restaurant, the grocer, or a caterer can sign up. Then what happens?
Yeah, so basically, it's similar to like the technology we have is similar to ordering an Uber or reserving an Airbnb, for example. So, give you an example, we work with Netflix. They have multiple offices around the country. They will come into our website, and then they will sign up. And then once they sign up, they put, of course, the information of the person, their cell phone number, and all of that. Yeah.
And this would be the cafeteria manager, somebody like that?
It really depends on the business. Like we work with SFO, for example, right? Which is it's an airport, so it's someone in sustainability, in F&B management, like you mentioned, someone in culture and engagement, someone in PR and marketing. It really depends on the size of the company, but typically people who handle sustainability, food and beverage, catering, hospitality, facilities as well. And these individuals will come in, will sign up, will put the information, and then once they enter that, they can add locations, right? So let's say I'm Netflix, I'll add 2 locations in Los Gatos, one in New York, one in LA, right? I'll add all my locations, and each location will have its own dashboard. So I go to that location, I will assign like a manager for that location, or some sort of an area manager, whatever accessibility, so you can give that person so they can manage that location. So let's say we move to the Los Gatos location, then we will have that person say they will request an on-demand pickup, for example, for the food that they currently just have the lunch, or they had an event of some sort. So they can request a pickup on demand, or they can schedule recurrent weekly pickup. So that means, okay, I know my catering comes in Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'm going to go ahead and schedule recurrent Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And I'll put the notes, park by the loading dock, call Matt, all the information needed for the driver to get on the app, and no need for any of that sort of extra communication.
They come prepared to pick up what they're there for.
Exactly. And then they also input some preliminary data about what your donation is. Now, we don't put a lot of pressure on the client, depending on the plan they're on, to put the data they need. Because our food rescuers typically have sort of what we call the advanced data capture app, where they basically put specifically what was in that donation so we can get the impact metrics necessary. Once that happened, right, you request your pickup on demand. One of our drivers from food rescuers, they're all paid. They're not volunteers. They don't have volunteers on the staff. And they get some sort of a nudge on their app. And then they basically, just like an Uber, they accept the task, and then the person at Netflix get an ETA, so that they know the food rescue is on the way in case they want to do some packaging. The staff there want to do any of the last minute kind of thing until the driver is there. The food rescuer gets there, take the food, and based on our matching platform, they will get routed to the next stop, which is typically a nonprofit in need that needs the food at that time, of that size, of that kind of food. Because the nonprofits we work with have similar sign-up process, where they request when they would like the drop-off, what kind of food, what day of the week, what's the size.
So you're looking at supply demand in extreme detail and matching source with need.
Exactly.
Now, I think a lot of people would be surprised that the way this is paid for is the companies making the donation are also paying for the service. And you hit on the reason a moment ago, which is companies need to do good mission work in order to retain and attract the best talent these days. It's part, the company needs to be doing good to get those people.
But
how does the pricing work? What's it look like if I'm a restaurant schedule, or I'm a big company that needs just call me I need to call anytime?
I think that's a very good point you brought, Mitch. I think the idea of businesses paying for the pickup there's multiple reasons, and I think the longer I'm living, the more reasons I'm seeing for that to be the case. And like, to start with, the PR, the corporate social responsibility, businesses have so much big budgets around corporate social responsibility, public relations, employee engagement. And then they have sustainability goals. Now businesses, they get marked if the leadership is not, they're not working towards ESG and SDG goals, right? Dedicated by the UN. And then they have to engage their stakeholders with what they're doing in terms of the climate or in terms of the communities that they exist. That alone is a good thing, right? But on top of that, in the US, there's other incentives. Like, some of the businesses we work with get some tax credits, right? When they file their taxes. However, this is still not for everyone, mainly for certain type of businesses. But on top of that layer also, you have now recently in California, the SB 1383 law that was effective January this year. so that businesses will start getting penalized if they actually don't donate their food. So now it's not just a good thing. Now you have to. New York followed up with similar law, by the way.
Right.
So
I want to talk about
yeah,
1383 in a minute, but
yeah.
let's talk about so the reporting you give to the business that is a customer also includes not just the impact, but the volume and if they have a tax write-off, the value of what
Yes, it would be an estimate, so that they have to work with their accountant to do that. We have a third-party partner as well that will help them if they would like to go in detail. They can help them prepare with the IRS actually doing that. So that's also an option for them. But to answer your question around the payments and how it works, I would say most of our clients, it's very rare that we work with a smaller, like a small restaurant. It's typically a chain restaurant, Chipotle type, or we're talking about like major chain restaurants, hospitals, hotels style. And then we talk about these major venues and event spaces that are actually, and then like Golden State Warriors, for example, as a
game's over. There's a lot of hot dogs left.
Exactly, but honestly, there's even better than that. We typically focus on even better foods, and you'll be surprised how much actually there's a lot of movements from just the hot dogs to a lot of salads and actually really healthy snacks. It's not just your typical. Which is also, it reminds me of something that the businesses also not only pay for that, which is there's a whole analytics tab on their dashboard where it shows, the next quarter we're launching the KPI around what's breaking down the donation. So it's similar to MyFitnessPal. You will see like, okay, that donation, what was the micro and macronutrients, so that we don't also encourage so much of the processed food kind of donation. Most of the end users, end of the day, require food that is even better in value than an average human being because of their deficiencies in their systems. So I think that breakdown and the insight in terms of the size of their donation with time help them understand what are the items they're donating a lot, have more informed decisions around managing food.
But also, it also sounds like they could reduce their own food waste to an extent based on understanding what went out the door. So how do you vet the nonprofits that you partner with, and what did they have to tell you about what happened to the food that you give them?
That's a very good question. So we work with very big range of nonprofits, and we don't just talk about shelters and soup kitchens. We work with senior centers. We work with youth programs. Really, any nonprofit that can utilize the food to really power their mission that they're working on. So the range is very big, and currently the way we work with them is most of the nonprofits currently reach out to us, to sign up. Because let's say for example they have certain needs on Mondays for food or certain needs on Wednesday for food, and the thing with nonprofits is a little bit more challenging because they're less online than your clients. It's tough to know what's going on in the nonprofit sphere, not because they don't want to. I think because there's low bandwidth, there's low capacity, mostly volunteer run. So they're doing their best they can, but at the same time, it makes it harder to coordinate. But giving the fact that we're allowing them, giving them a tool to sign up and be specific about what they want and which days to be dropped off and the amount of people they're feeding when they sign up. So that will be a good match for us. We sort of figure it out. But currently, to qualify as a nonprofit to receive the food, you hit the sign up button and then it takes you to certain elements. Like you have to tick 3 boxes. One of the boxes, for example, do you have one person on site who is food serve certified, right? Meaning that they can handle the food. They can handle the food. And it's usually common sense knowledge that you need to take like an online course for. We typically pay for that too, in case they have one who's dedicated, would like to do that. So they take that online course. We make sure that someone at least on site who knows to handle food. Second criteria is that they should have some sort of a refrigeration capacity. Do they have a walk-in fridge? Do they have a small fridge? Any kind of small fridge would be sufficient just in case they can't distribute immediately. They have to store a few meals for later. So once you tick these 2 boxes, it will open up for you to sign up. Once you sign up, you can upload on a setting tab your certificate. That means, okay, you're all good. We're open. Now you can start receiving food based on based on the market too. Sometimes you might be put on a wait list in certain markets, like we're not very established in, like Miami or other places in the US. But in most of our major markets, that should be a good to go button.
So I also noticed that you mentioned on the site that DoorDash and Amazon are interested in getting involved, and that raised the question for me: is can you Are you envisioning a sort of a point-to-point solution where a DoorDasher could stop at a source of surplus food and take it to one or more locations nearby without the intervening nonprofit, but perhaps on behalf of an intervening nonprofit?
This is a very, very good point. So we've been working with DoorDash for a while. As we started our relationship with DoorDash as a client, so they were donating food at their offices, San Francisco and New York. And then we developed a relationship to including all their essential markets. So DoorDash have a model now where similar to 7-Eleven, where they have like big essential markets all over the country. And now we also recover so much of that. But on top of this now, we integrated their what we call Dashers API in our backend. So that let's say we have a pickup in, let's say in Alaska, right? We don't have pickup. We don't have food rescuers that we haven't hired. The market is still very early on. So what we can do is we can dash that pickup, meaning if there's a DoorDasher there, we can use them as a delivery food rescuer. And we've been working with that program for about a year and a half now with DoorDash. We have multiple Dashers on our fleet who actually do the pickups with us. Of course, paid nothing. There's a revenue share kind of deal here. And we also do another third party with other food recovery organizations. Like, let's say there's an amazing grassroots organization in New York called Rescuing Leftover Cuisine, right? So what we do is we say, hey, look, we have a new client there. We can pay you for each pickup. Would you be our logistics to onboard you and do the pickups for us while we manage the dashboard and the client relationships? So it's sort of like an outsourcing with other grassroots organizations in Philly, in Denver, and other areas.
So do you envision your growth being built on those partnerships primarily, or do you want to have food rescuers in all these different markets? Or both?
That's a very good question. Right now, we're doing a triage. We're triaging. We're doing both to understand what the model would look like. But here's my logic: is there's so many vehicles out there. There's so many people doing pickups. Whether it's DoorDash, Grubhub, Uber Eats, Postmates, Amazon drivers. You have so much going on. So I'm always into leveraging what is there rather than rebuilding and recreating. There's so much redundancies. And I think ideally we create a system that is win-win for everyone, in terms of also not working in silos and working collectively, because this is a problem that requires centralization of information so that we understand how to solve it rather than just keeping it, right? So I think, we're doing that triage, working with DoorDash and all of that, but also some of these services are not reliable. So you don't want to also put yourself in a position where you can't show up to a pickup or not be professional and have the right tools in place. So we're still playing around with the model, but I feel like the vision, the real vision, I feel like if we have enough funding and and things are going according to plan, one, to leverage all the other food recovery organizations that are doing incredible work so that we can build capacity at their location, pay them for their maintenance, for their vehicles, and leverage other entities that are doing, already pickups in the streets. But I think the ultimate goal, I think ideally we can bypass all the nonprofits. And let's say I'm a family experiencing food insecurity. I would tap into Replate Market and I will know which place to go to and pick up the tacos that I would like today. So how do we bypass all of that? That's the dream. And I think the issue with that is you need to get the nonprofits online first. You get that data there, and then you can allow the end user to actually make it there.
Yeah, and when you say bypass the nonprofits, you don't mean cut them out of that, because they are an important facet of qualifying the people in need. You're talking about enabling them to step back. They don't have to do as much work.
And just to clarify what I meant with bypassing meaning that we need them. They still got to be there, the nonprofits. But what I mean is, like, how can we make the connection between the end user, the person eating the food, not the nonprofit, and then the person will go to the nonprofit because the nonprofit is qualifying that person.
The local logistics.
And pick up exactly what they want rather than whatever is available. So what I'm trying to say is that, let's say, for example, working with Bowery Mission in New York, okay? And we have a strong relation with Bowery Mission. We know exactly what we're dropping off from Bowery Mission at what time, right? But we don't know what's happening at Bowery Mission once we drop off the food. How can we get Bowery Mission online too, so they know, so that users who qualify based on Bowery Mission, nonprofit, that they qualify and the users know if they stop by Bowery Mission,
Right.
what is the food available? Or Bowery Mission can coordinate with Uber to get them the food to their home because they know Replate's food is coming and it has like, 1,000 burrito of, certain amount of food. And then you can have a system that is slightly more customizable, that is last mile. For many families, they can't do these jumps anymore. We saw it in COVID, in crises. I think the system, end of the day, would be ideal to go to home rather than having people waiting in lines outside of a shelter or a soup kitchen. So I think that would be incredible to get to that point. However, I think that takes stages. And I think starting with education, starting with what we're doing, hopefully at some point we get to that point.
One of the things that will contribute to that, and you mentioned it before, is our mandatory composting and food recovery laws, like California's SB 1383. So that requires that you redirect usable food to feeding the hungry. How did it change? I mean, I know it's early, but how did it start to change the flow of food in California? And what would the impact be of rolling these kinds of laws out nationwide?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a step in the right direction. But I think a lot of states would sort of learn from that, should, in fact. And these laws are not new, actually. It was based on other laws in Europe. France already had this law a few years ago.
Well, we like to take credit for original.
No, it's totally. But look, it's not about the credit. It's about doing the right thing.
Yeah.
I think one of the challenges that I see coming is, first of all, we're already seeing we're having clients we never thought would be our clients. Like we're working with the San Francisco Zoo and now the LA Zoo. So these are entities that have a lot of food on site. They're starting to think, okay, what are the implications of SB 1383? Right? Entities that are real estate agencies that are renting their spaces right now for tech companies, or they're getting, so there are a segment of clients that we didn't anticipate, getting a lot of traction. Hospitals are also getting big, campuses, major distributors of natural products, things like that. But I think the challenge with these kind of law is you have to have the right systems to absorb the food, because the tech of moving food is there. Right? There's Replate, there's a few others, organizations doing good work. But at the end of the day, if businesses are worried about fines, they're going to sort of do some sort of a donation. It's possible we end up with some sort of donation dumping, right? Because they're going to have so much amount of food in the streets need to be absorbed by nonprofits. Nonprofits already, agencies and food banks already are up the limit in terms of bandwidth. Actually, a lot of food does not get recovered because they don't have the capacity to recover it.
Well, and that also is a symptom of having a centralized approach to recovery rather than a distributed approach based on centralized data.
Exactly. Definitely. And I think that law is great, and it just requires sort of good understanding of building trust with these nonprofits that are doing the distribution piece by the end thing, and that law should also come with accompanying funding for the nonprofits who are doing the absorption of the food and the distribution to the end users, because you can have so much food in the roaming around trying to find a home. But if there's no home, then what did you do? It's a supply and demand. Again, I think that needs to be accompanied with the right amount of support for the recipient organizations. But that being said, I'm in love with the fact that the focus now is on the business. You are generating the waste. Yes, you have to pay for that. You're generating even if you're giving it to the right people, I think the accountability is great. The sense that we're putting more pressure on the business to look into what they're doing is a good thing, not in a bad way, that penalty, because I think the right businesses who have the good long-term thinking already understand the value of donating food. You don't have to tell them that.
Well, and I think you're describing a change in mindset that we're already in the midst of. And that's, instead of thinking about maximizing the profit from the food we produce alone, and not to say that profit isn't important in some way, we have to think about maximizing the consumption of what we took the expense to produce, to steward that material, is to rephrase what you just said. So is it also time to rethink the design of food packaging and other?
100%. I can't. Yeah.
Should we design packaging so that you could bundle up your leftovers and contribute them?
Yes, I can't. This is one of the dreams as well. I think as we grow as a company, it's becoming more and more important to think upstream, right? Like you can't just, like right now, okay, packaging is one of the biggest challenges when it comes to food recovery. And how can we go look up all the way up for these manufacturers, this like major caterers who are, doing this tremendous amount of food? How can you create a design that makes it very easy to donate, right? That makes it very easy to recover the food that is extra. And I think it's about time that it's about the education influence you mentioned. We're seeing the influence in caterers now understanding the importance of food recovery. I think the next layer is getting into packaging.
Well, so the other big trend that is emerging, and it's driven by the food delivery environment, is these ghost kitchens, these kitchens that are set up in order to produce food for home delivery. That suggests we could do interesting things with pricing where those of us who are affluent enough to buy food to be delivered home, particularly restaurant prepared food, could also in some way subsidize delivery of food to everybody else so that we compensated the restaurant for taking their what has been waste and turning it into productive food. That suggests there's a lot of interesting implications for pricing food that could build charity in. Have you guys explored those opportunities?
Definitely. I think we saw a lot of this model crystallizing in COVID times. In the past 2 years, we've seen many, actually, some of our clients, and I can mention a few that, like one of them is Greylock. It's a VC in San Francisco.
And I've raised money from them.
Okay, that's awesome. Maybe they can give us some money on their way too. Anyway,
it wasn't
they've been great clients of ours the past 2 years. In fact, been donating their food on daily basis. So what happened in COVID when they stopped going to the office, they were like, okay, so we already have that catering budget. We don't have people in the office. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to use Replate, and we're going to add, every day we're going to add a new location or, a few new locations where we will request pickups from local restaurants so that we can improve the sort of, the local economy by, ordering major amount of foods for, what I assume to be our employees. We're going to get Replate to go directly to the restaurant, take the food and take it to the recipients in need. So what they did is for the past 2 years, literally, and adding location, like this is this is like a family-owned Mediterranean place. This is like a small Korean shop that is very important for our community. So they started ordering this food. We take it hot all the way from that location to our recipient partners. We did that in San Francisco. We did that in New York. We even delivered to homes in COVID times. We did a feature called Replate Home, where we also go directly to homes based on the nonprofits' recommendations of recipients' addresses they gave us. So we've seen a lot of this model. There's more models that we've seen also in terms of caterers we worked with, who also got affected by COVID. So they had the facilities, they had the people that they would like to put them to work. So they start making these meals in their kitchens and requesting Replate to come and pick it up directly from their kitchens, while Replate subsidized some of that cost from supporting from the government and all of that.
Well, and that's the last question I want to ask about, is that subsidy that you are providing in some cases. People can make donations. What do you use the donations for, and where can people make a pledge?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So the best place to really, if you want to make a pledge as an individual, because like as I mentioned, we are B2B, so we work businesses to nonprofits, which ideally we can get to consumers at some point, because it's just more engaging for people when you work with consumers rather than businesses. But I think the best way to go to our website, replate.org, you can see where you can donate food or donate potentially financials, money, crypto, or normal cash. And the money typically goes to first paying our food rescuers, the drivers that do the pickups, and also help in subsidy that, potentially some clients that cannot afford a service like that, we can potentially subsidize some of this. And in terms of building the newest KPI that we're building, which I mentioned, this KPI of breaking down nutrition and food donation. This has never been done before. And I feel like it's going to change how people think of food donation by thinking and understanding what food we're donating. I don't think it's enough to donate 3 boxes of Oreo cookies to a shelter. I think we need to think bigger than that.
Nutritionally, we need to think about people and what they need rather than just what's left over.
100%.
Maen, I want to thank you for taking time for a fascinating conversation.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
We've been speaking with Maen Mahfoud, who is the founder and CEO of Replate. You can find out more at replate.org. Replate can be with or without a dash, RE-plate or Replate. Earth911.org. Do take the time to look, because we do have millions of tons of food waste in this country that could be sent to people in need. And it is perfectly possible in the long run that we can feed everyone and do so in a way that continues to make food production prosperous. We hope you'll take a few minutes to share this podcast and all the others that we have done with your friends and your family. Get these ideas out there. More ideas will create less waste. And as Maen described, it is really important to think about all the redundancy we have in the systems today. Innovation is not about just inventing something new. It's about inventing new and more efficient combinations of existing technology and experience. And what Replate has here, and what all of us can think about in designing our lives, is a more efficient approach to getting what we need, using all of it, and disposing and recycling the material that is left over at the end in the appropriate way. It's a big system, and we have to change the whole thing, but we're going to do it one step at a time. This is Earth911's Sustainability in Your Ear. I'm Mitch Ratcliffe. We're going to be back with another innovator interview soon. In the meantime, folks, take care of yourself, take care of one another, and let's all take care of this beautiful planet of ours. Have a green day.